Counselor Susie, can you hear us?
I can, Jackie. Can you hear me?
Yes. Is it clear or do we need to hook up a different microphone?
Okay, no worries.
I am here. You might have stepped away from his desk.
Good morning, Jim. Can you hear me?
It is on one side. So we have waiting for Hart, Beamer.
Jim, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. So we do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Councilor Beater has just joined us, so welcome. And Madam City Manager, it's your show.
Thank you, Mayor Guerra. So can you hear me? I just want to make sure that Councilor Restucci can hear me.
Just barely.
Okay.
A little bit louder would be great.
How about now? Is that better? Okay, so I'm going to start this budget kickoff, budget retreat with basically setting the stage. So we'll go on to the next slide. Everything in your packet is in this PowerPoint that I put together. So just want to go over a few things as we go along. One thing that I do want to mention, restrooms are up those 2 steps, and you find them out there to the left. If you need to take a phone call, I'd appreciate it if you would just go to the lobby or go outside if you need to take one. It's no big deal if you do. We do have muffins and pastries, fruit, and there's lemonade, iced tea, and coffee if you need some. And we will be taking a break, so you don't have to be sitting in a chair forever. So just so everybody knows. All right, so we're going to talk today about the vision statement, the council objectives that were created in 2016. We're going to do our 6-month budget status. So we're going to look at year-to-date. We're going to do a debt review. We're going to look at our target ending fund balance in the general fund. And then we're going to see where we actually spend our money in that general fund. And then we'll give you a preliminary budget estimate. And then we're going to talk about the carry forward 2021 enhancement requests, and then review those ARPA requests, and then get your budget covered. We will recess at noon for lunch, and we have a hard stop at 2 o'clock. So if we don't get through all the materials, we're stopping at 2 o'clock. Okay. So if we don't get through the materials, we will pick it up at another budget workshop. But I think we'll do this today. We can do this. So the first exercise today is the vision statement. I'd like all of the council members to look at this vision statement. Have a copy of the thing packet, a hard copy, and see if it's still how you feel about the city and if this is our vision statement. So the city of Sunnyside is a vibrant, safe, and clean city that offers great business, employment, recreational, and lifestyle opportunities to its diverse population. Now it's time to complete that.
Well, being at the last meeting that we had to get this vision statement, it took us about, I think Dean remembers, about 4 hours just to get to this stage. There was a lot of a debate back and forth, and I think at the end of the day, it still holds true today of what at that time I felt the vision for the city was, and I think it's still relevant today.
Yeah, I would agree. I suppose are we supposed to have our mics muted or not?
You can unmute yourself, it's fine. That way.
Okay.
Because I don't think this one's gonna catch it.
Okay. I just want to make sure Mr. Restucci can hear as well. I guess my take on the vision statement is that, I still agree with it. I like it. We spent a lot of time and effort, as the mayor said. It does show that we've got a ways to go on some things. But I think that if we're going to have a vision statement, it's going to show that there's ways to go no matter how we word it. So, I mean, you should always have something to work towards. So I personally feel it's still relevant.
Councilor Stoner, would you like to weigh in on it at all? Sure.
With the mask on, you can't hear. Muffles. I think it's a great vision statement. I don't think we're living up to it. That's my comment. I think there's things that we can do a lot better to make this a more viable statement.
Agreed. I think that there's work to be done, and that's why we're here today to see what we need to do to get that work and make sure this vision is what we see in our city. Councilor Dealer, would you like to weigh in?
Well, the statement is a vision, it gives us a goal to go to, so it sounds great. Like you said, we do need to work on it, and that's the whole point, is to work towards the vision. I think it's a great vision statement.
Councilor Rustici, would you like to weigh in?
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I would have to agree with the mayor, the deputy mayor, and Councilor Beeler. Mr. Farmer, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right, sorry. I think less is more when it comes to a vision statement. So I wholeheartedly support this statement. We worked on it a long time back in 2015. And I believe it still rings true today. But I would agree, we can definitely do more.
Okay, so consensus is our vision statement stands as it is. So let's go to our next item. This is our council objectives. And I put on number 3 partially done, and I put on number 7 done. So let's just go through these. I'm going to take them one at a time, and we're going to prioritize and make sure that this is still something that everybody wants. So sell Sunnyside business card.
I think that's still on all of our top to-do list, and hopefully create some business in that area. So I still think that should be a top of our list.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Would anyone else like to say no to that? I'm probably going to assume that we all agree that is the number one priority for us.
But I would also add to that, I think that as far as that business part goes, we've also seen over the last year or so that there's some things that we may have to do in order to get that sold. One of the biggest inhibitions to selling that is the fact that there's really not much in the way of services out there.
Water, sewer, infrastructure.
I would agree, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we're already paying back the loans, the bonds. So, we've got to do something in order to sell that part.
So when we get to the part about debt service, I've got a few things that we can talk about when we get into that part. So I will leave this part to that. I'll give you some ideas when we get there. Develop a sidewalk improvement plan. So, Mr. Fisher, would you like to report out on what we have done on this sidewalk improvement plan?
Sure. So what we've done so far is it kind of goes hand in hand with the tree replacement program. So the idea was, even back in 16, and we did talk about it a little bit last year and the year before, was once we had taken the trees out downtown, which had heaved the sidewalks, that we would go ahead and replace the sidewalk panels or curbing, whatever we needed to do. So we did have an audit with our insurance company, the BCIA, last year to talk about our sidewalks and our multimodal pedestrian rights of way. And so that's when my guys went out and started marking all the sidewalks in orange. Everything, all the trip hazards, all the stuff that needed to be. So we inventoried all that. We have an idea of what areas are the most in need of replacement. So that plan is being developed currently. And like I said, with the tree replacement program, as we pull those trees out, we'll repair the sidewalks and put the trees back in.
So is this still the priority for the council? Mayor Guerrero, would you like to weigh in on that?
I'm not sure if it should be number 2 on our list, but I do think that we still need to keep an eye on the sidewalks. Obviously, there's quite a few sidewalks that are buckling in some areas. And, but as far as being at the top of my list, not necessarily.
Okay. But you think we should just keep it, but maybe not have it in number 2?
Right.
Councilor Farmer, would you like to weigh in?
Well, I think it's something we definitely need to look at. There are some areas in town where sidewalks are deplorable. But we only have so much money, and it's just a prioritization program that we're going to have. And I think I think we can spend enough money on it, but there's only so much money we can. So I think it's a very important part of it, but I think it's something, and we need to prioritize it. We need to be concerned about it. And we need to be doing something about it, but I think we're somewhat limited, but I think if we spend our money wisely, we can continue on.
Mayor?
Well, of the three big complaints I got from citizens over the summer, the sidewalk was one of the big ones. And so I think it needs to stay at least in the top 10. I think it needs to be something that we keep an eye on. There are some trip hazards around the downtown area. I think of Decatur off of 6th. There's a couple areas where there's some trip hazards and crumbling of sidewalks and that sort of thing. And people are concerned about that. And because of the, where you go to renew your carb tabs and that sort of thing, there's a lot of people walking through there. So they all see it and then they mention it to me. But yeah, number 2, not necessarily in my mind to have it that high on the priority list, but certainly should be in the top 10.
Mr. Healy, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I think we do need to work on the sidewalks. I think we need to look at the safety aspect of it first, as far as prioritizing which one needs to be done first. And I know it takes a while, it takes funds, it takes a lot of time, but look at safety as far as which ones we attack first, not just what doesn't look good. But yeah, I do agree, it needs to be in the top 10, maybe not 2 at this point, but it should.
Councilor Stucci?
Thank you, ma'am. First thing, when we were making this list, I don't recall if we actually prioritized this list or not. I'm not sure. I think we agreed that all of these things needed to be done, but I don't necessarily know if we put them in an order or not. Because if you look down at the bottom there, I mean, I don't think I would have put develop a sidewalk plan before increase general reserve fund or expand parks and recreation. So I don't know. I mean, I think all of these still need to stay on there. And I support all of them.
Number 3, improving streetlights throughout the city. So I just want to remind everyone that we did do an LED conversion for every streetlight that is owned by Pacific Power. We do have some streetlights that the city actually owns, and those streetlights have not been converted. But Shane and I have something that we're going to bring forward to council. We've had a meeting with the company. I'm going to let Shane basically give us some more information about that program. So go ahead.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So what we're looking at is a performance contracting for an energy, it's what they call, it's called an ESCO. And so an energy services company contractor to come in. And we've had a couple meetings with them. I have Elizabeth, I brought her in earlier this week or the end of last week. I don't remember now. But basically they have a program to do all lighting upgrades for all of our city facilities and some HVAC upgrades for like PD, City Hall, a few other facilities. And as part of that program, there's such a savings with lighting replacement and upgrades to LEDs. We're also going to look at we have about 125 owned streetlights that aren't part of PP&L. Now, the LED conversion we did a couple of years ago, that was the PP&L program because those were PP&L lights. And so they sponsored the program and kind of they acted as their own ESCO to do that. Now, this company we've been talking with, Amoresco, is going to come in. They're going to evaluate the street lights, all the city facility lighting, and basically we'll bring that, of course, to council at a regular meeting. And I think they're looking to try to get on the workshop, and I think for the 7th of September. So we're still trying to work the bugs out on that to get them in front of you guys to kind of explain the program. So that's where we're at on the lighting replacement.
Okay, so this, hopefully this year or next, will actually be done if we can, where have we got feedback, Jackie? Okay. Still have a little feedback. So I'm going to ask the mayor to weigh in.
As far as the being replaced as a burnout. That's what I recall from the last conversation we had. I know there's a few streets or few street lights that are part of NRA.
So it's burnt out, or some dollars go bad. There is no program with NRA. So we actually have an electrician to come in to replace the ballast, but we're putting LED back. Those lights always have the exposure from the like I said, as they burn out, we'll replace them, because like Elizabeth said, it may be a year or two before we actually get the ESCO and go through that whole program. It'll be well into 2022 before that starts. So as things burn out between now and then, we'll replace with LEDs.
So I really think that this one is really, it says improving. So I think we improved them vastly from when we did this 5 years ago. So obviously this is almost, I don't know, probably 85% complete, if anything, because of the city building. So this is definitely one of those that have been advancing quite a bit along the way. So I'll say great job on this one for sure.
Comfortable removing it?
I would be, especially because we have a plan already for the city buildings to get those converted to LED. So I would definitely be in favor of getting this removed.
Okay. Counselor, weigh in.
Probably one of the biggest complaint getters that I get is streetlights. When they are off and don't work, who do we report it to? Or how is it reported back to the city? I've had citizens tell me they don't know who to call, and I tell them to call Public Works. But and I know Public Works can be busy, and some people want instant gratification. But it might be such a thing that these lights are out 2 or 3 days or a week before they're replaced. But so I think we need to have some kind of a program of who's going to monitor them. I know the police department used to, in their night patrols, as they drove around, would notice a street light out and would report it. I don't know if that's still being done. I know we're going to come into wintertime where any city employee in the Public Works Department driving around can see a light out, can report it and get it and get the process started to get it reloaded.
And I can speak a little bit more to that. And yeah, and most people do call us, and Janet has a list. We create a work order through PP&L. So there's a portal that you go on, a internet portal you go through, and she lists, and we get lists from the police department. They give us probably a page every quarter or so, and we submit that to PP&L. And then at that point, it kind of, as I say, it goes into a black hole. We don't really know when they're going to come fix it. Sometimes, I mean, if they fix it in a week, I would be over the moon. Generally, it's months. Generally, it's a couple of months it could be to get them repaired. And so that's, but people generally do find the Public Works, either through the website or through a phone call. They can report to Janet, and we create lists and work orders and submit those.
Well, I think we're a major customer of PP&L. I don't know whether we can apply pressure. I mean, they've got a business to run and they've got limited resources, but I would think to have a street light out to wait a month, it's totally beyond
I
expectations.
worked in 4 cities. I started my career out here in
Foster, and all 4 cities have had the same issue with PP&L. It's not just our jurisdiction. It is PP&L. And there's not really much we can to tell them they need to go faster. I can make some phone calls, but I don't know how much that would really influence them.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Maybe then if somebody calls and leaves a message, we can at least return the phone call, saying, hey, this has been reported that PP&L or Benton REA on the state. We can't replace the bulb ourselves, but it's been reported, and we're just trying to work through it. I think that a lot of times people just think they're getting blown off, and so I think if we can tell them it's been reported. We've done a bunch of I don't want to say we've done as much as we can do, but we've been reported, we've made them aware of it. They will be taking care of the problem.
So. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, when
Councilor Bergman.
I have a chance.
Yeah, so, when I came on council, the downtown improvement project had already been approved. And I made the comment, I don't know if it was at one of these retreats or somewhere else, I said, I'd really like to see these LED streetlights continued throughout the city. I thought it was absolutely brilliant downtown when I would go that night and I could see the lighting was good. It was fantastic. Shane at that point informed me that it was absolutely absurdly expensive for the city to take on that project at that point. So when we had the opportunity for PPNL to come in and do that, I was ecstatic. I absolutely love our new streetlights, except for the one that illuminates my entire backyard all night. But other than that, I'm very happy about it. And I'd like to see those continue. And this program that Shane was talking about where we might be able to convert, I think once we get more lights converted to LED, we're going to have less problems with them burning out. I mean, if we have problems, it's going to be something different. These old lights, they quit working. You've got different elements that stop working and need to be repaired, but these LED lights seem to be a lot less maintenance intensive, and so I'm in favor of that as well, and also less electricity being used to save us a little bit of money there. So I'd like to see it continue. Whether it needs to be on the list anymore, I'm not sure, but I'd still definitely like to see the rest of our lights converted.
Well, this being the first budget meeting, I'm hearing we have so much going on with the lights thing. I don't think it needs to be on this particular list. I think from what everybody said, there's already procedures going and it's legally approved, as long as we stay on top of it. It needs to be more focused and simple. It's not too
Well, I think one of the reasons that it's probably to our number of different things we've been talking about is that we basically need better communication, better links to obviously including work order to let people know that it's going to be. I'm sure you do it. But there are other ways that you can send out with water bills or different kinds of ways. So, but I think that we need to have a better communication. So I just say that. On the light situation itself, I'm absolutely delighted. I think that is in the areas where you put them in. I think we probably do that people actually just go out in the yards a little bit longer, and that's been their own bill.
It inhibits me watching the airplanes fly overhead at night.
Yeah. Well, that's
Seeing
funny.
Seeing
That's
stars,
funny. Your
just that.
hobbies, I can see it. I would do that. But nonetheless, I really think that the lighting program is going on famously. And I think that as long as, yeah, somebody else has said, just keep an eye on it, keep an eye on the program, have regular updates on it, so that talking about really something from the objective that's on track.
Councilor Tucci, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Well, two things. One, I'd like to address Mr. Farmer's concern regarding, if a light goes out or something of that nature. And Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, I can go outside my house right now, take a photo of an out lamp or an out traffic light or street light, and submit it to the city through the Citizen Tracker app, and you'll actually get GPS coordinates and everything else with that photo. Am I correct?
That's correct.
My mic is on, so.
A poll number also helps that process.
Okay, so
But yes.
so Mike, I would recommend that you have them go to the Citizen Tracker app on the web and actually be able to submit that thing. Then they can keep track of it themselves and know when it's actually going to be fixed, because they can communicate with the Public Works Department and have a unique ID, a unique request ID. And then the other question, when I was mayor of the city, I had the government relations director for Pacific Power for this region on speed dial. And I could talk to that person anytime I wanted to. There is a government relations director for this valley. Miss Alba, you should probably make coordination with that person. That person can come before council, can talk about outages and how they deal with outages and things of that nature and educate the public. There's a lot of things that we can do to coordinate with Pacific Power to educate the people on how their program works and how their repair systems work. So that's all I have, sir.
I do want to talk back to the mayor. Not everybody's as technically equipped as you are, Mr. Restucci or Councilor Restucci. Somebody tells me to get an app, I'll go someplace where I don't have to have an app. I'm a dinosaur and I will die a dinosaur. If I can't call up and talk to somebody for something, I will call somebody else and talk to them. They will lose my business or they will lose what I'm trying to do. Not everybody can do what Councilor Stucci is asking. It's a great way to handle that problem if everybody can, but everybody can't. And a lot of people won't.
Good points, Mr. Farmer. Good points.
Okay, so I heard from all the council, and are you willing to let us remove this one so that we can maybe add something else that's not done or not complete, or find another objective?
I'm good with gonna remove.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the next one is expanding parks and recreation. So we have talked about this in 2016, and we haven't funded it. And that's just honestly right, exactly where it's at. We haven't funded. We've had one recreation coordinator as our sole staff. Now during the pandemic, we actually took that person and moved them into the maintenance side of parks and recreation, took them out of recreation, so that we didn't have to actually have that person lose their job. When Lander decided to leave our employment, we also left the position vacant purposely because we knew there wasn't much for a person to come on board to do. We do have someone starting September 20th that will need to basically rebuild our entire parks and recreation program. So this one is, if we're going to have this be an objective, we need to fund it, and we need to fund staffing. That's probably one of the biggest issues with this program. It's hard to be a one-man show. So Mayor Guerrero, I will let you.
I agree. At the time, I think we really were looking for somebody to be able to take on that role and grow with it with hopefully volunteers. I know it's not easy with volunteers, but at the time we were really tight with funding to begin with, and it was one of those pie in the sky for me, anyways. Hopefully, we can get some funding, get this funded somehow to be able to have some options for kids after school programs. And again, now that the budget seems to be a little bit in a better situation, I believe that that's definitely somewhere where we can go, and not just the enforcement piece of it, but also the prevention piece of it with the kids. And I think this is a great way to get kids engaged in the evenings, afternoons, and get them in, sports even. I know they have a few different projects that they do, or they used to do in the past. So I'm definitely in favor of continuing with this being a top priority and having them be hopefully somehow funded additionally with staffing and getting kids an opportunity to get out and be active.
Farmer.
I don't think we can spend enough on our Parks and Recreation Department. The youth in this community will be the leaders. If they're not going to be the leaders in our community, that they will be leaders in other communities. I think that it's been tough with budget. It's been tough with COVID. But I think we need, as far as I'm concerned, that should be number one on our list of priorities, is having a functioning Parks and Recreation Department like we had 15 years ago. We had thousands of youth involved in all sports, and I think that any money that we put there is money well spent, and I think it returns in helping the police department. deterrent. It helps families. I mean, it's just win, win, win. Whenever we can involve our youth in some constructive activity.
So I think a good Parks and Rec program really speaks towards quality of life. I have the opportunity to work and travel through a lot of different communities, not just in the state of Washington, but around the country. And thriving communities have activities for their kids and they have activities for adults. And we want Sunnyside to be a thriving community. We want it to have all of the things that we talk about in our vision statement, and Parks and Rec is an integral part of that. As mentioned, you know, we were constrained by budget issues for a long time, and things are starting to look better, but I still think it's going to take sacrifice on our part in order to pay for that. It's not something that's just going to magically appear. These are not often programs that are self-supporting. We just can't charge enough for kids to participate. That's going to cover all the costs involved in it. So it's going to take sacrifice in different parts of the city in order to make something like this work, but this is still a priority for me. I want us to have an excellent quality of life in Sunnyside, and this is one of the biggies.
This is a biggie for everybody. It pulls on our heartstrings. It's usually the first thing that gets set back because it is above and beyond. I mean, the city is responsible for protecting its citizen with the police department, health with the fire department and first aid. Streets we just talked about that people could trip on. Lights are out. There's a lot of things that really the bones of the city has to be strong. And then you can go off and do other things like expand on the arts and recreation. It is important. It gives people something to do. But there's a reason why it's always set off to the side, because we have to get the city strong. We have to get the budget strong so we can spend the money. That's where I'm at. I think it's important. It needs to be on this list. But there's a lot of things that the city is responsible for the citizens of the city of Sunnyside.
You know, one of the primary things, we talk about vision statement here, safety in the city, safety first thing. And if you can't provide programs for your children, which will put them in safe conditions, safe environments, with good quality leaders and mentors, then we're falling down. We spent money on parks. We spend a lot of money putting the parks as nice as we can. We spend a lot of money on, the community has come alongside us to help with things like the skate park that's going to be going this year too. I'm in favor of that brings kids into a place that these kids better eye on, hopefully, and see what they're doing, and help them with those things. I really think that I've always been very disappointed in council that they would make the parks and recreation the ugly stepsister, Cinderella, and all of the different programs out there in our community. There's been many of them that have taken it on themselves to go ahead and sponsor things like the softball field. The Calvin Ripken program out at South Hill Park is all done by volunteers. And they're responsible for the little tower that's going to get hit by the video. I hope we've got a manage. I think we've got a program that's going to run. But just like with soccer, the local soccer kids, there's a good Valley soccer group right now that's got 128 kids running all over Pioneer school fields every Wednesday night, Thursday night. From ages 4 to 16. But we, as a community, we as a council, we're not supporting that program. We're not helping them with, like, if they wanted to rent the turn out soccer field, which is a perfectly good field, except it doesn't have any amenities. It has restrooms and fountains out there, or benches and responsibility. I know there's been a lot of work out there. So, and I don't know how many people are playing ball out there. I don't think the adults out anymore. Are you know?
Well, since COVID happened, and we stopped doing rentals, pretty much first come, first serve. So there was no organized, they may have organized, but they didn't come through recreation to do that like they normally would. So I think they're doing pickup games, but I don't know if they're actually doing an organized league. Right. Right.
The greatest to have them on city property, so they had some visibility. Out there behind Pioneer Elementary School, we've got, you know, 123 kids and all the aunts and uncles, Dallas, and siblings all hanging out out there. Then we could have them on the team and not. But I would feel like Parks and Rec system should shift every single year. I mean, if we're gonna hire somebody to rebuild the program, let's make a survey, what does the city want? Going forward, but we do need to say that. Absolutely. In my opinion, you have to think about Parks and Rec the same way you think about the police. Because it's safe. It's essential. I mean, I love to have the police explore kids, you know, be part of our Parks and Rec program, you know, part of this program. Parks and Rec, because there's so many things that they can do. On this, but it is about passion.
Councilor Restucci?
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, the major echo there.
Oh, shoot.
I think the microphone's too close to the speaker, Jackie.
Is that better? Is that better, folks? Okay, all right. So, you know, in this particular situation, council, I had a paradigm shift. You know, when I first got elected to council 18 years ago, I believed that council's job was to provide police, fire, emergency services, water, sewer, garbage, things of that nature, but that, you know, Parks and Rec was not a priority on my list. I have since changed my mind on that for a number of reasons. Obviously, letting our parks go brown for a couple of years was not a good thing, and we saw the repercussions for that. And, you know, and as a NARC board member, as a National Association of Regional Councils board member for 6 years, I got to travel the country and meet with mayors, council members, county commissioners from all over the country and see what they were doing when it came to parks and recreation. And I firmly believe that, as the deputy mayor said, this is a quality of life issue. It is something that needs to stay high on our priorities list. And I will never not fund my parks again. So I wholeheartedly support this. Whether or not it moves up on the list, I'm willing to defer to council on that one, but it's definitely one that stays on my top list. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for all your feedback. I do believe this is one that we should keep, and consensus is that it's important. So when we get ready to develop budget, we'll have to look at funding and see what we can do. Number 5, increase the general reserve fund. This one, honestly, I don't think I need to even poll the council to ask if this is a priority. I think this is something that we've all agreed that this is something that has to happen for our city. We have an actual plan in place to get to that, and we'll talk about that later. So if it's okay with council, I will just leave this item on and keep going with it. So I think we're not done with it, but we're moving in a good direction. Next item is beautification of city entrances, and I'm going to have Shane give us a little update on what we have done on city entrances.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So we have several entrances in the town. Exit 69, exit 67 are the two main ones that come off the interstate. And obviously coming in through 69, then turn off of off of Juanita onto YVH. We've got the Sunnyside sign there, and it's a little bit of landscaping, got grass coming in, doesn't look too, left side's gravel, that's a railroad right away, which is, you know, it's definitely important. Now, the other end of town on the west end coming eastbound, in off of, I think it's 65, exit 65 on that end by Monson. Now, we did have a sign there at one time, and now that sign turned out to be on private property. I'm not sure how we ended up putting that there. I was actually here then, but, so we moved the sign because they were developing that business. And so we took the sign out. The plan was to move it farther west towards Monson. And then we realized SVID, the railroad, the city right of ways all overlap. And so we couldn't find a good place to put that same sign that's on the east end of town. So we still have to kind of work through that and find a good location for it. Generally, those signs would go in at your city limits, but the city limits on that end of town is all the way out past Monson. So it's basically once you cross the canal there and you hit the Monson property on your left, that's where our city limit starts. And that's really a long ways away from town to actually put the sign and do any kind of beautification. So we have talked about putting it possibly in the PD, you know, somewhere in that on the other side of the canal there, that the police department do something there. We know that coming in there, you know, they had, you know, there was the truck yard, as I'll call it, that was there just as you get past the PD and the well site there. Now that's been purchased. So we've got, we just approved some plans for somebody to develop all that. So that'll clean all that property up. So that will look a lot better as you come into that end of town as well. But as far as replacing the sign, we're still working on that. So. And so I'm not sure what else for beautification. You know, when you come off of exit 67, the port's done all that along there. They landscaped that along PW pipe, looks great. We have the other Sunnyside sign with a kiosk there. A little piece of farm equipment they put out there, looks good. So I think other than the west end of town, I think all the other entrances I think look good. So I'll let council weigh in on what they think.
Mayor Guerrero?
Well, I'm not sure how much I can say about this interest. I know we had a suggested plan from Roger Brooks, a study we did a while back. And I don't recall if that was part of it, the beautification of the city entrances, but obviously somebody coming into town and the first impression kind of sets the tone for the rest of the community. So definitely if we have some work to do as we walk in or drive into our city from tourists, we definitely want to obviously emphasize that part that, hey, as you drive into town, this is what you expect in the community because it looks good at the entrance. That means the rest of the town is upkept as well. So definitely, I see living in the city, you kind of get used to seeing this on a daily basis. So you don't really have a perspective of an outsider. Oh, it looks good, or oh, wow, this looks like it needs some help. So again, I'll defer to the rest of the council as far as what they feel is appropriate in the area because I live here every day, drive through these streets every day. So to me, it's Sunnyside. Does it mean it's the right approach of what Sunnyside should look like? I honestly, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to say because I live here, I see it every day, and to me, that's just normal now. It becomes a part of that's just how it is versus what can we do versus how it is. So again, I'm not sure if there's room for improvement. More than likely there is. Obviously, it sounds like Shane kind of pointed out a couple of different areas that we're working on and some areas that are hard to pin down because of access to different pieces of land to put some signs up or spruce up a little bit. So not sure. I'll just leave that as a comment.
Councillor Farmer?
Echo the mayor's comment. First impressions are lasting impressions. If you go into a town and it's not very inviting, it's overgrown with weeds and there's no curb, gutter, and sidewalk, you don't think an awful lot of the town. And I pay particular attention when I drive into town. As a matter of fact, I paid attention when I drove in Prosser today. And I think they have done a better job than we have of making the entrance nice. I know, for an example, I drive on the Mapton Road every day. And the area next to the bar pit, next to Aho, if there's weeds, dry weeds, 5 foot tall. I don't know whose responsibility that is. it's in the city. I don't know if that's always responsibility. I don't know if that's our responsibility. But if you look on the other side of the road, there's not even a blade of grass growing because that person takes pride in their property. And those are things that we need to instill amongst property owners. We need to take pride in what we have. We need to tell people, this is Sunnyside, welcome. And that would be my comment.
Council Brewster or Deputy Mayor Brosman.
Yeah, so I don't see it as much in Washington State, but I certainly see it a lot in states like Arizona and Nevada, where the welcome to the city signs and the city limit signs are like 5 miles outside of the actual beginning of the city. I remember, this was quite a few years ago, but coming into Springerville, Arizona, I still could see nothing but desert. Literally nothing but desert. Bang, big sign up there that says, welcome to Springerville. And speed limit dropped. So we're on a 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere. Speed limit dropped to 45, then it dropped to 35. And I'm chugging along through this desert thinking, what a great opportunity for a speed trap. And sure enough, there it was. But the welcome to the city of sign was out there. So, if we're, it's just speaking towards what Shane was saying, if it's just as they cross the canal there coming into town says, welcome to Sunnyside, and we can keep that, the ditch banks clean and that sort of thing. It isn't a horrible entrance to town that way. We've always complained about the truck lot there. And for me, it's kind of exciting to think something is going into that property. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. But we do have a lot of work to do on our entrances. And I think a lot of our problem is that we're stretched kind of thin. So when we're doing the chip sealing on our streets, we're pulling people from mowing and taking care on other jobs. And so we're having to pull from one area to another. And I'm not sure how to solve that, because that's going to be a huge budget change if we start hiring people to do all of these things all the time. I don't think the city can support that. But our entrances, I think, coming in from the Burger King over there, that side of town, I think it looks pretty nice. Coming in over there on Midvale Road, South First Street, I think it looks pretty nice. The one that I see is the one coming in on Yakima Valley Highway from the west, and that's where we struggle probably the most.
Councilor Beeler.
Just like Sean said, it's exit 63 when you come into Sunnyside. Now, I have a freeway sign for my business out on the highway. And you get off the exit, you go over, and you dead on to where the feedlot is. And there's a sign that says Sunnyside and Services, and that's it. Or Outlook this way. Actually, no, they got the memorial sign now also with an arrow coming in towards Sunnyside. And then the next sign you see is just before you come into town, there is a sign that has churches and other things on it. And it's funny, I just looked at it 2 days ago and it's leaning forward. It's a timber sign with the mesh and it's leaning forward. And we do need to get that fixed and get it looking really nice, because it is that a lot of people, especially coming from the west, that's the way into the city of Sunnyside. It does. Even if I have a sign out there to get to the bottom of the ramp and they don't know which way to go, the sign says this exit 63 for Sunnyside RV Park, but then you get to the T-bone and they don't know where to go. It's something we do need to address and get nicer and better signage, because that is the first thing to come into Sunnyside.
Councilor Hart.
I agree with Councilor Beeler on that, and I think that regards to that end of town is our first impression of the west. And I don't see any reason why, if we own Muncie property still, still do, why we couldn't take a little piece of that and set it up as welcome to Sunnyside. If we needed to put, a sign that says on what is the word I want to say, on the something that says we're still growing, watch us grow, something like that, to make it relevant to the fact that there's a big old piece of weeded field out there. But like you were talking about, the desert just went on and on. It was like, keep coming, we're here. You know, something along those lines besides the speed trap. I mean, that kind of sounded really too. But I know that I'm supposed to call them now. But, because there's a lot of people like me who tend to forget that 55, then 45, et cetera. And why couldn't we take the signs that were all about all the businesses, you know, the churches, service clubs, like they've done over on the Port District, and put them closer together? They're so, it's just random, where it feels random, where they're just when put that it's home of Sunnyside Astronaut. It's the home of the Jerry Taylor Memorial. And maybe even have something there at that little piece of property out where there's meats, the types of meats. I just kind of think that area, because it's already ours. I mean, we own it, so we've got that area yet. So why couldn't we take a piece of that? I mean, it's right as you come around the corner, and there it is. Welcome to Sunnyside. This is how we serve our community. We're on the road here, and look out for your friendly neighborhood police officers, because they're ready to welcome you as well. But doesn't that sound like that could be doable? I mean, we have the piece of property. I mean, it's ours.
And we can make that part of the condition of sale too. I mean,
Right,
where we still have access to that piece of property.
right. I mean, we're mowing it, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
We're taking mowing.
Couple times a year.
So I kind of think, so yes, just continue to really beef up the beautification and keep those areas clean. I mean, I kind of think of it as part of our park system. I mean, I imagine that's probably how you, I don't know, manage your park.
Yeah.
But that, I would really think that'd be the perfect place for the west side, to just have it all right there. Just come around the corner, take and welcome to Ag. And have a big old piece of combine or something out there. Great. I don't know what Mr. Sweet has over there at the museum, but I'm sure there's just something we could put there at that acre. So this designate ourselves at that point, and it would be an easy way to do it. I mean, it's not that's what I have.
Thank you, Councilor Hart. Councilor Stucci.
Thank you, ma'am. You know, I've said for years that, you know, besides Yakima, we're the only other city in the valley that has 3 exits to the highway. And we need to capitalize on all 3 exits. I would like to see some uniformity between all 3 exits. I don't know if that's something that we can do, but it's definitely something we should look at. Anything we can do to bring somebody off that highway and into Sunnyside, we should be looking at doing. You know, it's definitely an economic tool that we're not using right now, and something we should definitely be using. And I've said that for years, Madam City Manager. The council knows how I feel about this issue. You know, anytime Sunnyside is unique in a way, we need to capitalize on that. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I believe this item will stay on. That's the consensus I'm hearing. And I think maybe we can bring forward some plans during the budget process and see if we can,
You know, see
how much it will cost to
get
get
signage out there. So I'll put that on my to-do list. during the
budget.
The last item is
Increase
staff and
planning and
community development. Now, this is an item that at the last budget amendment meeting where we passed that, you funded it. So in my opinion, this one's done, and I think we can take it off. So Mayor,
Would you like to weigh in on
I have no objection on getting it taken off. I really appreciate the fact that we got some more help in that department. I know the businesses who are growing and then expanding and remodeling appreciate the fact that we have more staff to review plans and hopefully get them done in a timely manner. Time is money, and to them, you know, the more a project is being held up, the more it costs them. So I appreciate the fact that we have some help there and help the businesses and the construction community move along better.
Councilor Farmer?
Well, this is probably one of the biggest complaints I have from people. And I think increasing the ability for us to answer and to help construction companies and prospective businesses along the way for them to come. I think it's money very well spent.
Deputy Mayor Boersma?
So I guess my question is, we've increased staff. Are we still, I mean, can we still say that we are offering the best service to the folks who need these services? I mean, are we doing the best? Is there more that we can do? Do we still need more staff in there to make this efficient? I really, I mean, for a long time, planning and development and that sort of stuff has been a thorn in the flesh of council, I think, because we hear it from everybody that Sunnyside is difficult because we're kind of slow. And so I'm wondering, are we now doing the best that we can do?
Well, we were in the hiring process, so until we get those two other people actually on board and we are able to see the results of having the number of staff that we really need, we can't give you an answer or yes or no.
Okay,
Give us a little bit of time to get them on board, and then
I've already spoken with my shuttle. Sorry. And we have a plan that we're going to do to make
it efficient, right from the beginning, so.
Okay, and that's just always my concern, I don't mind if we have to increase the budget for something to work, as long as we've got the funds to pay for it. But what we're doing has got to be able to offer the absolute best service that we can conceivably think of. And that means constantly thinking about it, making it more efficient, doing different things. It doesn't always mean hiring a whole bunch of people, it just means streamlining processes perhaps. And that's my biggest concern. I would like to see us just make it easier. So with these two people, when they come on board, I think that's a good first step. So we can revisit it again probably next year. We probably will. And then I'll have my answers, I guess. So at this point, carry on.
All right. Councilor Beeler.
Don't have any real comment on this.
Okay. Councilor Hunter.
Well, I agree with Deputy Mayor Boersma as far as we need to be providing the best customer service we can. And I think within the department, within that we make that just a priority in the training staff and so forth. That they don't come, that they have the best customer service. When you go in to pay your water bill, you get great customer service. You should be getting the same out all of our departments. And I think that this is one where we can really put on a shiny face and say, look, we're here to help you build in our community. Whatever you need, we're here to help you. So yes, I think, maybe we don't need to increase the staff, but just really focus in on the customer service aspects. As part of the So I'm okay if we move.
Okay. Councilor Stucci.
I kind of echo the sentiments of my colleagues. One thing I would say also is that, to make sure that we're utilizing all resources that are available to us. As chair of the COG, I think regionally, I always think about how can we solve these problems, working together as cities. And so I think it's important that if we're going to be looking at, planning and things of that nature, that we look at the services that the COG can offer, because we can not only save money and get the resources that we need, but we can also build relationships with other cities in the valley.
Very good. Very good.
That's a good one.
So I'm hearing that it would be okay to remove this item, but we do want to keep it as something that
we report out to you occasionally, so you know how our increase is doing and
give you updates on that end.
Maybe even in our status request, I think that would be ideal if Deputy Mayor Boersma agrees that if we get an ongoing report on how we're doing the staffing, and also that the software that we bought for the planning department to be able to submit some plans and review them, that kind of stuff. I think that's definitely helpful. I think Councilor Restucci asked for a report down the road once it's implemented to see how well it's working and see how the citizens are utilizing it, if it makes sense to continue that subscription.
Perfect. I'll work on that. Okay, so we've removed 2 items. I would like to
talk to you about what items you'd like to add on. So I would like to replace those 2 items
two that you can all agree on. So
That's funny.
I think, yeah.
Well, we're
That's the key word.
optimistic.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the mayor.
And
I'd like you just to tell me,
besides
besides
this
this
list,
list,
what
what
is
is something that you think should be an objective of city council?
So I do have a few for council consideration. This is my wish list, obviously, but and just listening to the rest of council talk about the different items, improving the beautification of the city entrance, for example, extending the path from where it ends at First, I think is Yakima Valley Highway has just a bike lane, extending it out to our city limits, for example, that would definitely increase the beautification section. I know that would be a partnership with SVAD along that Highway 12. But I think that would definitely hit a couple of different marks as far as the beautification of the city entrances and lifestyle opportunities for people to be able to bike farther out of town, even walk, have the kids be out there. I see people go from Sunnyside to Grandview and skateboards and bikes and just walking their dogs type of thing. So I think definitely that would be something that would create more opportunities for adults and kids to stay active and have their own little section of pathway that is close to their home potentially. So that's something that I feel like might be a good addition for this this objective. Another one that's been kind of near and dear to my heart is building a convention center eventually, or even I know we had a conversation with Elizabeth not too long ago about even just getting the ball rolling with plans for potentially looking at what a vision of a building would look like, location maybe even, or something that would create a bookmark in a sense in our mind that, hey, this is something we're going to shoot for. Yes, it is going to be long term. Yes, it's going to take a bunch of money. Yes, it's going to be definitely well received because it's sorely needed. An example I brought up was hospice, who used to do their event at our community center. They just outgrew it. It was so well attended that they needed more space. Unfortunately, they had to go somewhere else. I'm still planning on sponsoring this year through work, and it's a great event. It's a great cause, but unfortunately, our community center just cannot support the growth of that event. And how many other events are we not able to support because of our limitations? Again, and that's something that I think in the long term would definitely be, again, down the road. I'm not talking 5 years from now, but definitely to be in the back of our mind, that is something that we definitely have to keep an eye on. Another one of the objectives for me especially is getting caught up with our chip sealing. I know we underfunded that for the past several years in the budget. And I'm just concerned that some streets are going to get to the point that are not going to be able to be sustained with just chip sealing. You're going to have to tear out the whole street. And I think last time I asked, I think it was expensive, over $1 million per mile. I'm not sure if that's even accurate, but it is, from what I heard, very expensive. And chip sealing is a great way to preserve our streets longer. Eventually, they get to the point that they will fail, but at least we're able to maintain them to a good standard without potholes, without cracks. And definitely, it's one of those complaints that I hear somewhat often. And I think us getting caught up would definitely be beneficial not only to our budget long term to avoid big expenses, but also our citizens who are paying for this transportation improvement district that we funded, and that's definitely one source of funding that we could utilize for getting caught up and up to date on our chip sealing.
Okay.
I'll leave it at 3. I don't want to overwhelm everybody with my
All
ideas.
right. Councillor Farmer?
Piggybacking on with the mayor, I don't even know about chip sealing, but I do know we've got some streets in town that chip sealing would just be a waste of chips. And then these same streets have curb gutter side or don't have curb gutter sidewalk, and if they do, the walking hazard on them is great. So I would like to nicer neighbor, if the for an example, when I was on council years ago, when we repaved 13th Street, all of a sudden, all of the homes on that street thought, hey, I'm living on a nice street now. maybe I ought to mow my yard a little more often. Maybe I ought to fix my fence. It's contagious of what, if you live in a nice area, it's contagious of what happens to the neighborhood. And so I think that that's something that maybe we should look at. Other than that, I just think we need to spend a lot of money on our parks and rec. I think we need look at our reserve fund and our city entrances. I think we need to make Sunnyside look nice. So the only thing I could add would be just piggyback on the streets.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Bursma.
Well, I found it interesting that Mayor and I are not necessarily walking in exact lockstep, but we certainly agree. I work in Yakima a lot, and I see how much that greenway pathway is used from Union Gap all the way up to Sela and all the way up to Natchez. I don't know if you noticed as you came into town today, how many people were on the pathway here in Prosser. And they were family groups. They were groups of friends, people walking their dogs, people bicycling, people roller skating, that sort of thing. The pathway is used a lot. I see the pathway used a lot between Prosser and Grandview. There's a lot of people on it. And so people can walk on that pathway all the way up to Sunnyside. And then from Union Gap, they can walk all the way up to Sela or Natchez. But there's a huge gap in the middle. I do believe that we've got great space to continue our pathway. We've got the drain, we've got railroad right away, and then there's room for a path. And I think that's something that can be utilized. Now, we have issues with shade trees and beautification along that path, and that's got to be something that's got to be a priority to us if we're going to do this, but it does provide greater recreational opportunities. I live up on Grandview Avenue, and there are people who are walking on Swan Road, Grandview Avenue, and there's no sidewalks. Unfortunately, you also have people who are going to work, and they go to work a little bit fast. And so there is danger to pedestrians there. Every time I head down the hill to go to work, I see senior citizens marching up Swan Road with a great deal of determination, much more than I have. And, you know, I worry about them not having sidewalks there. So if we can continue that pathway along there, I think that gives people a safe place to walk. Not everybody wants to drive all the way across town to start their walk and then drive back home. And so I think that that's a great idea. On the question of convention centers, there is one small town in northwest South Dakota, and you drive for miles across grassland to get to that town. You're probably close to 80 or 90 miles north of Rapid City when you're there. And as you come into town, there is the most beautiful convention center. And it's ag implement dealerships all around there. But what that convention center has done, as I've crossed through that town a couple of times, I'm starting to see hotels built up near it. There's a Holiday Inn. There's another one in there that just went in. I can't remember which one. But that convention center draws people for conventions, and those people need a place to stay. And that hotel that's there servicing the convention center then brings in tax dollars for more activities. And that's just going to be a continued benefit. Now, convention center, when Ms. Hart was mayor, we started a fund out of the LTAC money that we're kind of putting aside towards a convention center. So we do have some money put aside for that as a start, but it's pretty much a drop in the bucket right now as to what we're going to need. But there is something there that might be able to tap for some planning or that sort of thing. And I just see that as a potential economic boost for the city of Sunnyside, just by extended industry there, because those people are going to need to eat as well. And so that's going to help our restaurant industry. So things to think about.
Councilor Beaver.
Well, I like to look at the tourism side. There's a lot of dollars out there. People want to go and tour and come to Sunnyside and everywhere else. We no longer have a Chamber of Commerce. We've lost that a couple of years ago through a lot of circumstances. And we don't really have a visitor center. We don't have a place for people to come in and find out about the city of Sunnyside. And I think that is something we really need to look at. And they all go together, a convention center, welcome center or visitor center, and possibly a Chamber of Commerce. That's always been really heavy into tourism, I'd like to start thinking about looking at going that route. That's
Okay.
all I got.
Right, Counselor Hart?
Again, with the piggybacking on a number of these comments that have already come up. And I absolutely agree with Councilman Bailey and Deputy Mayor Boersma in regards to the convention center, because not only can we bring in, have events like, and the mayor as well, not only can we have the hospice, or maybe the hospitals, even the hospitals celebration every year has gotten bigger and bigger, and they put out, they need more room, need more space. They're gonna be going to Yakima. And we don't need them to go. We're right dab smack in the middle of the valley, and we need to have a convention center. There's no place between Yakima and Tri-Cities, and we should be captured. And that was my reasoning when I was talking with Deltac a few years ago, and that's why we started adding that money to that plan. I do think it'd be a huge economic benefit to us, and we should get started on some plans. I always figured, since the community center was just sort of sitting out there, that we could incorporate some sort of convention center in that area. We've got lots of room there, but maybe someplace else in the community is better. I don't know. And it would bring in tenants. As far as the streets go, I absolutely agree with them, with Councilman Farmer. That we have a lot of little streets in the community, and the police department and the fire department know where they are, that are just rough to get through. Get into those streets is really, really hard for safety reasons. So in terms of figuring out some money that we could put on those streets and get those streets up to par, I really agree that we need to do that. And of course, I already spoke at nauseum on the entrance to LFP. So I agree with those four items that we're just talking about. We need to really consider this during this budget period.
Thank you. Councilor Restucci.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, first, maybe a lesson for council. When you want to try and get something done, it may take you a while. So in the case of the Sunnyside West Business, the West Sunnyside Business Park, in 2008, we held a retreat, and I said I wanted to see a solar farm on the West Sunnyside Business Park. So we're there. We're not quite there yet, but we're almost there. And so I'm really excited to see that come to fruition, hopefully in the next couple of years. As for the airport, I've said for years, our airport is a diamond in the rough. The people who, the founders of our community who purchased that airport, they knew what they were doing. Doesn't encroach on our properties. It's not encroaching on other cities. It's something we need to protect and need to use as an economic engine. And I firmly believe that. Now, when it comes to transportation, I have to agree with Mr. Farmer. As a state transportation commissioner, I can tell you the state has a $935 million deficit when it comes to preservation and maintenance. That's going to have an effect on how much money is available for us. That's just the way it works, how we fund transportation in the state. It's kind of a trickle down effect. So the legislature is going to move money around in order to fund the state's transportation deficit. And in that case, the cities are probably going to take it on the chin. So anything we can do for preservation and maintenance, we need to do, because this isn't over yet. The commission just voted last week to raise tolling, and then 2 weeks before that to raise ferry fares, because the deficit to our transportation infrastructure has been huge. Then when it comes to new things, this is something I've asked for years, and I'd really like council to look at it again, and that's transit. When we start looking at cities as they grow, we're almost at the 20,000 mark, and we really need to think about having transit for our citizens in our community. And whether we contract with Tri-City Taxi or somebody like that, or even Yakima, or we create our own, that's something council can decide later on. But I truly believe we need to look at transit in the future. So those are things that I'm happy to talk more about with council. Obviously, I want to hear from my fellow colleagues on what they want also. So that's all I have right now.
Thank you. So now what, sorry, Jackie. So now what I plan to do is take
All of your suggestions, I will put them in a list. And then at another workshop, I will have you prioritize them individually, and then I'll come back. And then we take the top two
from everybody that way.
if there's any. And at this point, it's time for us to take a recess so that we may get up, stretch our legs. So we'll go
Go
back.
back into session at 10:30. She has a camera over there. We could put it in front of her.
I have my computer.
Yeah, no, I can use it.
Fortunately, we know where it's at.
Got turned in from Henry. It should be available. They might just have to reset it or something, get your email on there or something, but
I'm not
Other
sure,
than
he
that, it
actually-
should be
I'm not
good.
sure, Francisco, he actually had one. I thought he was using his
Didn't
own.
have one.
he did not have one.
No,
Oh,
but we'll get you one.
okay. So it might be coming then.
I've got a laptop too.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, given the current situation right now, I'm more than happy to give up my laptop if Mr. Beeler needs a laptop. I have plenty of technology available to me. So I don't know if we have one for every council or not.
I thought we did order one for everybody, so maybe could be mistaken.
Yeah, I gotta get your, yeah, your. Okay, and the camera should be right here. And let's see. if it's- Start video. Oh, started it and stopped it. Okay, there you go.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's more of my crap.
Okay, so we've got Julia all set up. Now we can see her face. And you can't see mine, so maybe I should turn on my camera there. So welcome back. Our next item on the agenda is to review the financial intelligence tool. This, I didn't get us into this slideshow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it up out of my share directory. So we've used this tool in the past. I'm sure most of the council is familiar with it. I was gonna share the right screen, sorry. Okay, now we're on the right screen. There we go. So the financial intelligence tool, just so to remind everybody, is Washington State auditors information. It goes back a long ways. You can look at all kinds of reports. You can do comparisons for years. The one thing I do want to point out that I'm very proud of, you'll see right here where it says filed on time, 7 years running. Yay.
Yay, Dave.
That was a big thing, big milestone, one that we will constantly do and hopefully never see that reset. So this gives us our 2020 results. So these are unaudited results, but at least it gives you an idea of our financial health. So for 2020, I only have 2 funds that have a concerning, basically outlook. And the reason we have concerning on these, our garbage fund, how can I say this? Our garbage fund is reliant on the contract we have with Yakima Waste. Our contract with Yakima Waste states that we will collect the revenues and remit to them the balance. But somehow, years ago, it got reversed and they send us a bill. And we've been trying to research how to correct that. So Delilah's been keeping a worksheet showing how much they bill us versus how much, if we were remitting the revenue to them, we would have. And year to date, they have billed us an extra $25,000. So one of the things that Shane and Delilah and I are working on, and we're in the process of, and Jameson, yes, sorry, forgot about you, Jameson. We'll all be working on is finding a way for us to, number one, alleviate this problem. Number two, not renew the contract with them and go out for a new contract. We don't know if our plan is going to include coming to you and asking you to help us start our own utility backup. We don't know if our plan will be to see if we can find another city that wants to do garbage for us. We don't know yet. We're still brainstorming, but I wanted to give you guys at least a heads up that this contract expires in April. We desperately need to change who we do business with. We are the middleman for Yakima Waste. They do not take phone calls for our customers. Customers call us. We record the problem. We call Yakima Waste. Yakima Waste, more times than not, usually tells us too bad. They don't want to help our customer. They don't care if our customer's lid was up. They don't care that it's just basically too bad. Then we have to call the customer back, and then they're upset because of the service that was provided by Yakima Waste. And we often give our customers a credit when we feel like it's deserved, and we rarely get a credit from Yakima Waste in the same situation. So while it's a hard thing for us to say, we may be changing garbage services, and if it was up to staff, we would change it tomorrow, just because of the pure, we talked about customer service, right? We want to be good customer service, and we're not able to get that from Yakima Waste. The other thing that we want to make sure we keep in mind as we go through this process is that we still have control over the rate so that customers and our citizens are able to have that rate that is established by council. The other option we could have is we just privatize garbage completely and we get out of the garbage business. But then, as you all know, privatized garbage would mean a rate increase for our citizens. I'll be honest, since I live in the urban growth area, I have basin disposal. I've had them for many years. They are about as opposite as you could get from Yakima Waste. Many times my garbage is overfull. I don't get charged extra. There's been a few times where I've had stuff next to my can and they haven't charged me extra. If I call and I need them to come back, they do it. They tell me up front how much it's going to cost. If I ask for more cans, they're delivered timely. And I mean, honestly, I've never had an issue with the service that's been provided. However, I do pay a lot more for garbage than we do with Yakima Waste and inside city limits. My garbage is probably 4 times more than a can the same size inside city. So where we charge like $10, I think I pay $40. So that being said, wanted to get on your radar and at least know during these budget talks, the finance team and the public works director will be working together to figure out what we want to do with garbage and how we want to get our value for our citizens, but yet deliver a service that we can say is good and does not, you know, basically bankrupt us, because we spend so much time on garbage and we are not recouping enough in that contract to even pay for the work we're doing. So wanted to give you that heads up. And then stormwater, it says concerning, but really that's just because we've had to start hiring staff in that fund. And you raised the rate in 2020. So we'll start seeing that rate increase this year. I don't believe it's concerning anymore. And Mr. Fisher, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll speak on that a little bit as far as the stormwater fund goes. So we are in talks right now with HLA. We are doing an analysis on our stormwater utility. So a bunch of years ago, and I think Councilor Stucci probably remembers, I don't know if anybody else here, Mr. Farber probably remembers also. We did a stormwater rate study with HDR probably 12 or 13 years ago that was supposed to set rates for both residential, commercial, and industrial users. We had a city manager that came in, decided they wanted to do their own rate analysis, pitched the HDR one, and then it went out and they assessed a bunch of property owners. And basically, we had to refund a bunch of money, all the stormwater assessments. So what happened at that point is basically we decided to charge a residential rate for all parcels in Sunnyside. So that is still the rate structure today. So we're looking at trying to, now Mary with Utility Building has done a great job of doing an audit and getting, because there were some people that weren't paying that $565 a month stormwater rate. And so she's kind of worked through that, done a great job. So there's more revenue coming in from that. But the piece we still don't have is the commercial and industrial stormwater fees and that rate structure. So HOA is working on that because people like Walmart, people like Weimar, we have this huge parking lots and all this impervious surface, these large buildings aren't paying their fair share of the stormwater utility. So once we work through that, I think that, and along with what Elizabeth said, raising the rate a little bit, hiring staff is kind of made it look a little wonky, but I think once we get the rate set, I think we'll be in good shape going forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Fisher. So really, overall, the message here is we have good financial health indicators, not really anything that should be, super concerning. I do invite you to go on to FIT. If you don't know how to get there, I can send you a link. It is on the state auditor's website. But this basically gives you kind of a one-shot glance at our financial health. And this has been truly a great thing to see. There were years when it wasn't just concerning, it was bad. And we aren't in that outlook anymore. So just wanted to bring this forward for all of you to see and, let you know that we're doing a lot better than we were.
Excellent.
Elizabeth, as far as the garbage, I know in the past we talked about the whole recycling process of it and trying to get that in place, but I know it was quite cost prohibitive to get those trucks. I think they talked about over 100,000 per truck, and then obviously the cans and everything else. But do you believe that going that route as another service from our city to our citizens would make more sense than Yakima Waste? I know, and I have some experience because I called them a couple of different times, and yes, there's a long hold time. Maybe they'll call you back, and it's they did resolve my problem, but then they said, "Oh yeah, it's the city of Sunnyside, so maybe you need to talk to them first." I'm like, well, this big commercial can hasn't been picked up, and it's on Monday, and it's overflowing, and that's the regular pickup date. So they did send somebody out that did resolve my problem, but it is cumbersome. And then I pay my garbage bill to the city, and I would expect the city to kind of resolve the issue. But I know how it works, so I called them directly. So someone else may not know how the system works. They may, well, I'm paying you guys got to resolve this problem. So I'm not sure what the solution is, but you're great with numbers. You have great help. And if there's a way for us to look at numbers and comparisons, what makes the most sense financially, and also for our citizens as well, I think that'll go a long way for us to, down the road when that gets to that stage, make a decision and see what makes the most sense.
And Mr. Fisher actually looked online and kind of tried to see how much garbage trucks cost. So we are looking at that as a program that we do ourselves. It would take trucks and cans and people to actually run that utility. So we know just a conservative estimate on the number of cans, it costs us what do we figure, about $1 million to buy all the cans?
Just for the curb soak cans.
So that's a huge expense. But in the long run, it gives us the control over what happens in our city. So
And it would be like an enterprise fund, right? Like
yeah,
the
it would be
sewer,
an
water,
enterprise
and
fund. Yes.
it will get to the point that it's self-sustainable
Would.
and, you know,
Yeah.
that makes the most sense in my mind, you know, but again, you know, I guess we'll see what numbers look like and go from there.
Yeah, so
Mayor?
we're still working those things out. We've just had our first meeting. But I did want to make sure that council knew that this is something we are exploring. And we want to have a plan so that we can talk about it during budget.
Didn't they just come to us and have us up our bills to buy them a new truck,
No.
garbage truck?
Mm-mm.
I think the rates increase every so often, and they pass on the charge to us.
They have a CPI increase annually in their contract. So every year it goes up, whether they buy a new truck or not. Yeah, it's just a cost of living built right into the contract. So, yeah, we probably have bought them a lot of trucks.
Well,
So,
especially if they're overcharging us every now and then.
well, it's not just now and then, it's just because of the way the billing has been done for the last, I think, 10 years. It's just not there. It's not the way the contract reads. And I've been trying to get them to understand that, but they don't want to really come to the table and talk to us.
Miss Alba,
That's no good.
Oh, Councilor
Miss Alba.
would like to speak.
Mr. Mayor, can I speak?
Sorry, we have to put your speaker on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, two things. One, we did look at the garbage program under when Don Day first got hired as a city manager. And Shane, I believe you came to council and told us that it would be cost prohibitive for us to purchase trucks and run a program ourselves. And second, when it comes to the garbage program, for instance, I've had a can here at my house for 3 months now, a temporary can. And I worked directly through Yakima Waste Systems to have that can. And they informed me that I could only have that can for 3 months. And if I wanted to keep it, then I had to contract through the city. Is that the way the contract's written, Miss Alba?
I'm not sure, honestly.
Okay. Because I had a can here on my property for 3 months while we were cleaning up our basement. And I was going to keep it for a while, but unfortunately, they're telling us that in order to keep it, we would have to contract with the city.
So are you paying them for that can?
I paid them directly, yeah.
Yeah, that's odd. We'll have to look into that because I'm not sure we even knew that was happening. Because there shouldn't be anyone inside city limits that's not going to the city paying for garbage.
Yeah, see, I wanted you to be aware of that. No, they told I paid them directly, and they told me that I could have this can temporarily for up to 90 days. But after that, if I wanted to keep the can, I would have to contract with the city.
Yeah, I believe that's not allowed under our municipal code, actually.
I kind of thought that too. So that's why I'm bringing it to
Yeah,
your.
we'll need to look into that because that could be a breach of contract.
Ooh,
Ooh, grounds.
helpful.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've learned something new today. And I appreciate that information. So we will be looking into that, and I can see Delava over there writing very good notes. All right, so let's move on to our next item. So our next item is the budget position totals. You've seen this report. This isn't anything new. We reported out on this in July. So overall, our revenues are at 61.5%, and our expenditures are at 37.1. This is a 6-month report, so 50% is what would be our target. So we are doing quite well. We aren't overspending. We are having revenues come in strong. And with that, I would take any questions if anybody has any.
No questions for me.
Okay.
Just one question, of course, this was from probably reporting from the end of June, but at 37% expenses, does that mean that we've got some upcoming big expenses that we're looking forward to?
No, actually, we try to split those half. Most of those come in the beginning of the year. And then anything that we do, like for interfund transfers, that we do half and half, so that you get part of it on one and part of it on the other. So,
Okay,
so I don't think we have anything major coming up that I know of.
that's good to hear.
Yeah,
Have you seen that trend continuing in the last couple of months in July, August?
you know, actually, the trend that I've been seeing is that our revenues have been so strong and doing so well that, you know, and our staff has been really watching what they spend, that we're coming in, we're balancing the scale the way we want to see it balanced. We're not having all these big ticket items come up. You know, and as a council, you've been able to see through the budget amendment that we were able to fund quite a few things that we didn't know we would be able to fund this year. So I think you're going to see that trend continue. Our staff is just doing a really good job of paying attention to their budgets. So
Well, that's what I like to see.
yeah. And I don't see that trend stopping at all. So, okay, next item, debt and interest. And if you'll notice on the screen, just so council is aware, I've incorporated a few photos of our staff and wanted to point that out if you give a chance to look. I think it's pretty nice to have real firefighters and police officers and people that we work with in our presentations. So this is the debt and interest. And here's the good news. We've come a long way in 5 years. So the first time I prepared this document, so I have one of these that actually is from 2016. First time I created it was in 2016. We had $20 million in debt. So if you look on the screen at the top, in 2016, my chart showed principal of 16 million, interest of 4 million, and a total of 20. So in 5 years, we've reduced our interest and debt obligations by $6,447,008.67.
Wow. Very good.
And really what that means is we've done things, we've paid stuff off. We refinanced some of our bonds. We haven't taken on any major new debt. We've done some for equipment, but we haven't taken on any, you know, huge debt. But as a city, in 5 years, for us to get that debt down by $6 million is tremendous.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to point that out. And if you guys will note the photo in the corner, that is our new officer swearing in that I went to on Tuesday. If you could have seen me under the mask, I had the biggest cheesy smile on my face you could ever see.
I got the pleasure of meeting one of them the other day, and yeah, you could see the energy. You know, they are definitely eager to help the community, and yeah, they're definitely the youth is definitely something that you can tell in this officer. So I'm glad that we got some fresh faces and fresh blood into the police department. I think it's going a long way for the morale of the city to see new faces and someone, you know, a little bit younger that can relate to versus, you know, like a father figure or, you know, type of thing.
Yep. Okay, so our next slide. This is our calculation of our debt. So this basically is the tool that you would use to find out how much debt you have and how much debt you can carry. So as a city, we have a debt capacity right now for, without a vote, $13,265,000. So if you wanted to, as a council, build a convention center, you do have the ability to go to a bond without a vote to the public for $13 million.
Would this be an option for the garbage?
This could be an option for the
okay.
garbage. And actually the Debt capacity for utility would probably be more like that. That would be, and that says it's voted. So if you look on the paper, you can see there's different types of debt. So the one at the very top is general purpose. So that would be like general fund. The next one down, without a vote, that would be, I think that one's just also, that's also general purpose. So the one would be without a vote at the top, that would be councilmatic bonds. The next one would be general fund, that would be to the citizens bonds where they would have to be voted on. The next one would be utility purpose limit. And then the last one is open space, park, and capital facilities. So you can see the only one that's not citizen voted is the very top one. And if you look, you have debt capacity in every category.
Oh, wow. And I know I am not the one that says, let's go run and take ourselves into debt. I'm the one that's saying I want to pay down $6 million of debt. But I'm also the one that's realistic that says there are some things in our community that we need to work on and things that need to get done. And we don't necessarily have 4 or 5, 6, 10 million sitting somewhere that we can commit that to. And we could use this. So this is just a talking tool. This is something for you to think about. I'm not doing any proposals today. I'm not saying let's take on debt. All I'm saying is here's our capacity. Here's what we have and what's available. Okay.
Do we, if we indebt ourselves with more money, the more money we owe, is that going to translate to a higher interest rate that we pay for the money that we borrow?
Well, right now the interest rates are so low that it's a prime time to borrow money. In fact, getting 1.63% on vehicles, that's unprecedented. And the sad thing is right now the bond market isn't paying very well either. But if we were to borrow money, we would be borrowing at that lowest rate. So it is a good time in our economy if you have the capacity and you have the ability to pay it back to take on debt for projects. And it won't change the rate. Once we lock in a rate, it's that rate for 20 years or however many years, as long as we have it structured that way. So something to think of, something to kind of mull around in your head a little bit. I am not always a big fan of taking on debt, but right now the circumstances is pretty good for us, and it could be a solution for some of the things that you want to do. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next one. And if you guys will note, there's our building official and our permit tech at the Christmas Festival of Trees. So, and we couldn't figure out when Andy's picture was taken, but we knew it was pre-pandemic because his hair is so short. All right, our next one. Target general fund ending balance. So I have in your packet the entire worksheet that we worked off in 2019. We gave you 3 plans, a moderate, intermediate, and aggressive growth models on getting our general fund balance up. Council chose to do the intermediate growth. So we are tasked today to do our ending fund balance in the general fund, but actually we don't need to do that because it's already been done for us at a previous council. So our model is that we're going to try to save $1,250,000 in our ending fund balance by the end of the year. And honestly, we have it. We're there. As long as nothing catastrophe comes up, we should be fine. And we'll get to that slide here in a little bit. But just wanted to make sure council knew this is our ending fund balance target and where we're going to go with it.
So really close to halfway to the goal that auditors want us to be able to not worry about making payroll and all the other good stuff
Exactly.
that we have to worry about.
Yep,
Okay,
so we're halfway there.
excellent.
That's
Okay.
terrific.
And I will point out two lovely police officer photos,
Oh.
especially the kitty. I love the kitty.
And who's the officer there?
Melissa,
No, the other officer.
what's the other officer? Chipperus? Chipperus.
Oh,
And that's Benny. You'll see
Oh, I
Yeah,
know
then he
Benny.
rides his bike, they gave him a bicycle.
oh, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I wondered where he got his bike. Yeah,
Yep.
he's a good egg, that little guy.
All right, so next slide is where do general fund expenditures go? So general fund expenditures, salaries and wages is the biggest expense we have in that fund, 47%. And then if you add the employee benefits, that bumps it up significantly. So really, when we talk about how do we make cuts in the general fund, the really only way to make cuts in the general fund is when you cut staff. So, questions on this?
So what you're saying here is that the best thing that we could do is increase it. I mean, increase income to our general fund rather than have to cut it.
Yep. That's the reality. The reality is the only way you can get the general fund healthy is if you continue to review rates, look at what we're charging and making sure that our rates are covering how much it costs to do that business.
Well, I had somebody tell me years ago, you cannot save your way to prosperity. You've actually got to increase income. So
Yep. And you're right on with that one, spot on. Okay, next one. Preliminary budget. So this is a very, what we call down and dirty. This is not final by any means, but this is the beginning of revenues and expenditures for 2022. So I want to point out, we just talked about the target ending fund balance in the general fund. Do you see the number there is 2.475? So a little bit of that though is the ARPA money.
Okay.
So we want to be cognizant of that the ARPA money is sitting there and it's not expended. But I do have my ending fund balance put aside somewhere else. Okay. So this is good news. Great news. And you'll see there's not one fund that has a negative balance in the ending funds. And I used a 2% growth model here. So 2% in revenues and 2% in expenditures. And we will be refining these numbers as we go along and they will change. So just want to be prepared with that they will change. But this is kind of the first look at where we're at. And I would like to point out our lovely Public Works crew. And I don't know which ones they are because you can barely see their
From
faces.
here, I can't tell.
But that's our Vector truck.
Yes.
And then that's one of our crew working on pipe install. Okay, next.
I don't know what I did, but I lost
So
it.
this is 2021 enhancements requests that were funded. And I think that you got the deferred first, so you'll have to go to the next handout to find the funded ones. And I just wanted to, I put this in here because I wanted to remind everybody what we actually did. We have funded the cameras at the Veterans Plaza. We have funded one fire EMS position. We've funded equipment rental replacement. We've funded police vehicles. We've funded equipment rental funding in various funds, SCADA server upgrades, base station smart points, Franklin Court water main improvements, communication upgrades, well 11 hypo upgrades, well 8 upgrades, lift station again, sewer pipelining, and
the position in EMS for that firefighter. Okay, next. Enhancement requests that we're deferred. So the nice thing about this at budget amendment number 2, if you look on the screen, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects on this list that were deferred that now have been funded in this year through budget amendment. And those are the airport development strategy, archive social, building access security improvements, comprehensive plan updates, and create a police patrol position. Okay. Now, at the very back of your packet, you'll have this document. Does everybody remember the document with the dots? So, Counselor Restucci, we're actually going to do an exercise where we kind of run around the room and look at these. You've done this exercise for me already virtually, so I have your results. I just wanted to invite you to maybe take a break if you'd like, and then we'll let you know when we're ready to get back on Zoom.
Sounds great. Okay, ma'am.
All right, great. Thank you. So at this point, you should all have red and green dots. If you could take your red and green dots and put your initials on them. So write your initials on them so we know who voted for what.
I'm gonna get 3 million for those.
And now you'll notice around the room, there are different things that are handwritten on the signs. Those are the rest of the things that were on this list. And they are also the things that were on this list. And I'm going to get the one that I have in color because I like the one in color. So it's everything that was on this list that starts here, goes through to here. I did not include anything that got no votes or got negative votes. At some point, if we want to do this full exercise again, we can. But today, I at least want to get, of the ones that were not, that had only 1 vote, I'd like to get your consensus on them. So you've got 3 red stickers and 5 green stickers. And so just under the one that you like, put your green. Under the ones that you don't want to support, put your red. And they're all on the wall up there. And if you haven't had a chance to read Bill Harris's letter, it's up there for you to read. And staff, you can go. Oh, my battery's going low. Do you? An hour and 8 minutes. I don't know.
How do I get back?
I'm gonna make this smaller.
My big problem is I keep hitting things I'm not supposed to, and it disappears from the planet again. Where do I find you? So what do I gotta hit to get back? Oh,
There you go.
oh, thank you. I felt like such a, oh, near that.
All the ones with 1, and they're all up there.
And those are the
Whatever's up
ones,
there.
so those we can change minds, add to. blah, blah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Because there's. This was your slide, right?
Yeah, that's my side.
Okay.
Do you need to do something else?
No.
Oh,
What do you want me to do?
you say that you wanted to make it smaller.
No,
I was trying to access them.
Yeah, I was like, I was gonna tell you, but I'm like, I don't want to take any more time.
Bags, for people that don't have a laptop bags.
So what do you want? What's the letter from Mr.
I know, but we're just gonna read what they had in their original stuff. This is their original act. We'll just say that, read it, and then we'll figure something. Yeah, because we're gonna do something. You and I are gonna. Do something. That'd be nice.
Elizabeth.
Hmm?
You know, when Restucci was talking about the, when we come to council about the economic report. And the reason why we.
Hello. Okay, so again, I want to point out. Get us back up on the screen. I think everybody else can see our firefighters there. And one of those, is that, Ken, is the one on the right at a wildland fire?
Yeah, that's actually a burn that we did. The one that's facing away from us is Sid Island.
Okay, so now let's talk about ARPA. ARPA money can be used to do, and these are those sample requests that you received that Martin Casey put together. And that was to replace lost revenues, tourism and hospitality grants, utility assistance grants, and cybersecurity improvements for water and sewer infrastructure. Those are the ones you have in your packet. And we have funded at the last council meeting the utility assistance grants. That is in the progress. We're finalizing the applications, getting those all ready for set up next week. So those will be going out and customers will be able to apply for that money then. So here's what I wanted to talk to council about. I think that when you were given this blank form, it looked like this. Everybody was a little confused. Do you agree? Mm-hmm. So I would like to know, would you like it if you just send an email that says, these are the kind of things that I think I would like to see if it fits. And I will task staff with doing this kind of report out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Man, that would be.
So if you could all basically send me an email of things that you think fit into the ARPA. Now, you've all seen the list, and I can email the short list to you again of all the different things that ARPA can pay for. I have no problem then assigning those out to staff, and we'll bring it back. And we'll let you know, yes, we can do this. No, we can't. So if you could do that, I think it would save all of you a lot of work, and it would put staff in control of figuring out if it will work, if it's a use. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I had a meeting last Monday with YB-COG, and they're working with Yakima County right now, and they're trying to kind of do a consortium. And what that is going to involve is they want to take some of this ARP money and pool it for low interest loans for only people that participate in the consortium, and it would be only in the Yakima Valley. Apparently, Yakima County received so much ARPA money that they don't know if they can spend it. So possibly they might have $50 million to put into this fund. And if we could save a little bit of our money and get buy-in, we could leverage that for loans. So I want you to keep that in mind as you think about the things that we're doing. We don't have an exact dollar amount. What Chris from YB-COG said is just don't spend all your money right away, Elizabeth. It doesn't have to be spent until 2024. It needs to be obligated. We can build out still until 2026. So if we can wait a little bit and see kind of how this plays out with Yakima County, I think it would be a really good idea for us to get involved in that so that we can be a part of that pool of money for projects. So, and it is allowed under the interim final rule. So if once they get the final rule and we know for sure that the program can go forward, I think us being involved with YB-COG and having them help us, make this resource available is important. Any questions on ARPA?
Just a comment, if anything. I know we had a meeting with some other mayors from the city in Yakima this past Thursday, and a number that was being thrown out was 20%. And again, that's something that is not finalized. It's something that they're talking about, and they did bring that subject up as far as kind of like what C does. I mean, they do as far as low interest loans and grants type of thing. And I know the county mentioned that they really wanted to spend all their money in infrastructure. So it's one of those things that if we can leverage their dollars with some of our dollars and again, get a really low interest rate loan, would be a lot cheaper than going out into, the bond market somewhere else that we could definitely save some money for items that are sorely needed in our community for sure.
Yeah, and we've talked about those today. We've talked about our streets. We've talked about, sidewalks. We've talked about things that need to be done, and maybe this would be our avenue to do that. So with that, if you look at your screen, you will see my first official picture as interim city manager. And with some of the best in Sunnyside. So this is it. We're done for the day.
Are you kidding?
Our lunch is being delivered at 11:30. And you're welcome to stay, eat your lunch here. If you have something you'd like to do, you can take your lunch with you and go. I'm going to take all of the signs back to work, and I will tabulate and distribute at the next council meeting. Today was fabulous, and I appreciate all of you and your feedback. You've really given myself and the staff the direction we know you're wanting to go. I think we've done a lot of really good work on those objectives, and we've got some good things coming for our city. So I'm excited. So with that, Counselor Restucci, thank you very much for attending virtually.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, are you gonna cover the budget calendar at all?
We do have a budget calendar. It's in here it's in hard copy. At least it was.
It's in the agenda, that's what I was asking.
Yep.
Oh,
Got it.
Jackie hasn't. Oh, is it in there?
Yes.
Because the
last
If you just go over that with us, that way we know what to expect.
Sure. I can't find mine, but I'll go get to it.
Is that it?
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Okay. So today we are doing our planning retreat. So obviously that was the 21st or 28th. The next actual official budget workshop will be October 4th, and that's when staff will actually be presenting their individual department budgets. Then I will be filing the preliminary budget and message with City Council on November 1st. And we will have public hearing notices. So we'll have notices that go out and then public hearings on all of the dates that are listed in September and October. And the final budget hearing will be on December 3rd.
You don't see any hiccups along the way that might cause us to add meetings to this? You think we'll be in good shape to get this done okay in time?
You know, I think that if we do have any special meetings that we need to do, we can do them actually at a workshop.
Okay.
I'm trying not to stack our workshops up very much in October, November, just so we can save those for budget. So we'll have one here on Tuesday that has 2 items that are not related to budget, but I think we'll be fine. So the October and November workshops, I plan on those being set aside for us to work on budget.
The reason I was asking, because also you have a brand new role, you have a new individual in your shoes, in a sense, your prior shoes, and I don't want you to get overwhelmed with trying to do 2 roles at once, and something gets maybe missed along the way. So just if you could try to, your time, I guess, use it wisely, make sure that we're not overwhelming you with, budget at the same time with city manager responsibilities. So.
Well, and that's why I have such a good team, 2 very smart ladies sitting in this room that both know how to do the work. So I'm confident we'll have it probably be easier than it has been in the past, honestly, because now you have another person that knows how to do it. So teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yes. I just want to thank Delilah. I know last year she took on a big role with the
Yes.
budget. So I know I didn't get a chance to, at least myself, to thank you for all the hard work. I know it was something that got thrown in your lap, unexpectedly in a sense, but I really want to thank you for your stepping up and taking on that challenge. And as far as I'm concerned, we had a great budget, and thank you for the hard work.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I mean, you made cross-referencing a little bit easier as well as a result of your work. And I thought that was kind of nice because I could find things. I'm not real good at sussing things out on all of these forms, so being able to cross-reference, I think that was helpful. So, and obviously, as we look at the year as it's passed, you guys did a good job because everything is just falling into place. So well done on that. I'm looking forward to this coming year and seeing you work on that.
Yes.
Awesome.
I like that.
This being my very first budget meeting, you've made this really easy. You've got all the information here. I just enjoyed the way you did this meeting and got the information to us. I appreciate that,
Oh,
as
great.
we all do.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that things will go smooth. I'm not real worried about the dual role because like I said, got 2 smart people here that can handle it. So.
And I'm just speaking from experience because once you get a new role, it's hard to let go of some of your fine tune that you used to do it in your prior role. And I know at least I had a hard time giving up some of my responsibilities when I got, different roles in place. And I know it's a little bit tough to give up some of that control, but it sounds like you have a great team to
Oh, trust
kind
me,
of
I can
delegate
do
that, so
that.
you're good.
I got it. I can
Great,
hand it
I'm
right
glad to hear
over.
that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I did most of the work in this, but I handed over probably 6 or 7 of these to Jameson and said, I need you to do these for me. So she pulled them off and gave me the slides and I didn't have to work on them.
Great.
So I'm confident that we can get this together. It'll be easier for me because Honestly, I won't in the future be doing most of this. I'll be doing the speaking and the talking points, but Jamie will be taking that part over. So,
Excellent.
Obviously.
and Delilah too. So anyway, okay, well, with that,
Good job, everyone.
may we
Council, anything,
adjourn?
any last comments?
I just
We still
want
got a
to,
little bit of time, so let's, Julie, you wanna go first?
yes, please. I just want to say, this has been one of the, obviously a couple, I've missed a couple because I wasn't on council, but the previous budget sessions, long and involved, and I think we've got it streamlined to a nice point, thanks to you and your team, Elizabeth. And I'm just really pleased with how this came out today. It was easy to understand, and so we could get our comments in without taking up the whole day. So that was very nice. I appreciate that.
And we still have those meetings where we got the department heads presenting their,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, that would be in the November, I believe it's the November work, November 2nd.
October, November,
Yeah,
Is it?
so we'll get to hear those anyway, but
Yes.
yeah.
for sure.
haven't
Oh,
done
no,
that.
October 4th.
It was kind of, otherwise it's such a lot of information to try to absorb.
So
Councilor Beeler,
Good
any
job.
last comments,
I've already
questions?
said them.
Excellent. Councilor Farmer?
I think we made the right choice in asking Elizabeth to be our interim city manager. I appreciate the work you and your staff have done to make this, I don't want to say enjoyable, but we were easy to understand. And I appreciate the hard work you guys have done.
Deputy Mayor Boardman, any last comments or questions?
No, I pretty much said what I needed to say. Thanks you guys for making this short and sweet. Hopefully comprehensible. Sitting in meetings is not ever my favorite thing to do, but this wasn't that.
Glad to hear. And last but not least, Councilor Restucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank my fellow council members, city staff, for the work that's been done on this budget. You know, as many times as I've done the budget now, I honestly believe we keep getting better and better at this process. And although I want to thank the current interim city manager and her staff, I also want to thank the previous city manager, previous city managers, because I think little by little we're getting to the point where we wanted to be, and I think we're at that point right now. The budget is easy to understand, even for somebody who has rudimentary understanding of government funding and government budgeting. And so I think it's important for us to, when we present ideas, that, you know, it's not a black hole. It's not something where the citizens can't understand where those dollars are going. So I really appreciate all the work that's been done. And I appreciate the fact that council's had an opportunity to present their ideas, their items, and that those items are being tracked, and that even though we can't fund them, they're not being lost. And that's happened in the past. So it's been nice to see that. And then again, you know, I firmly believe we made the right decision with Miss Alba when it comes to interim city manager. I think she's done a great job so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with her and her office. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you guys are going to go and have your lunch. I'm going to go ahead and leave if there's nothing else.